No,
Not
because
really.
Amy does.
And operations. So, Rob, you
Sure,
start?
yes. Today, we had our first admin meeting with school perception consultants, both Rob and Darren, to begin talking about what we're getting into in terms of our contract and in terms of direction. And of course, the board drives this process. So we're looking forward to this evening starting the conversation with the board in terms of thinking through strategizing what kinds of information we would like to see perhaps on that community survey. And just a reminder, we're shooting for whenever we decide to go to a referendum question or questions, remember there could be plural, there could be double questions, there could be both capital and operational. So we have to be starting to think about 6 months prior. That seems to be the sweet spot for data being accurate and having it about 6 months prior to a potential referendum question to have the most accurate information available. So I applaud the board for investing the time and energy right now to begin conversations with what kinds of information we would like to see on a potential referendum. So again, there's really two kinds of referenda. There's both operational and there's capital. And so this evening, it's if you don't know or aren't sure of the difference, please ask a lot of questions. Please be thinking through, and we have a lot of expertise on this board financially. I know that, and that's wonderful. That puts us in a great position to move forward. So decisions don't have to be completed tonight on do we want an operational, what's a priority or a capital, but we need to be thinking about that. So in short order, we can work with school perceptions to begin diving into those questions. So that's, I guess, keying it up, teeing it off in terms of the purpose of tonight's meeting, in terms of, does that meet, Diane, your
Right, because this is something Kevin had brought up at our
Yep.
last board meeting and what, you know, to set up a special time.
Sure.
So, I mean, Kevin, do you have questions that you want to start out with?
No,
Okay, well, you can.
no, depends where the rest of the board wants to go. I'll
Well, you-
chime in.
Okay, because you had brought up the amount, because we have, okay, of course, falling off debt. We have, now what was the I'm sorry, Steve, you're here. You gave us the last outline or proposal that we were looking at.
Correct.
What were the two amounts? Because one was with,
Yes. So, I guess I can only speak to the plan that we brought forward in May that you folks saw and the public saw. I'll speak to that only because that's what I
Yes.
can speak to,
Yep.
okay? So when we put that plan together based on strategic needs and from our strategic plan, we took that information out to three main general contractors. We asked them to put pencil to paper. It's a typical exercise that they go through. Some are more diligent than others, but also knowing that we have a really good feel for what the square footage in certain areas are costing in the educational world. I get some great publications that really spice that up, and it just doesn't lie. They come out to about an average build. I won't go into Taj Mahals, depends what you want to build. But on this plan that we had put out there, just give this to you quick, so it's in front of you. Just for reference.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
thank you.
All right. So, looking at that plan, I'll just be very brief with that. There's different colored sections, and we put this together for a reason. There's remodeling areas, there's new additions, and some athletic pieces that go into that as well. But when we broke the plan out, This was really a tech education-driven project, infrastructure project, because of the age of our existing kitchen, and things that support that kitchen and how we do business. So if you look at that plan, taking the gym and the locker room piece away, the numbers that came in from, on an average, for that section of work was about 20.2 million. The gym piece came in about 10, a little over 10, with the mezzanine attachment on top of that. Granted, this was May's numbers, so this doesn't hold water, this is not
Right.
defined numbers, they're really general. And as I've talked to different contractors since then, you know, we'd have to readjust and relook at what we throw for a cost at this type of a project. But I think this is a very
8%,
good,
wouldn't you say?
sorry?
About 8%?
Yeah, so you know, if you look at this, yeah, you're probably about 25 to 35 million is where you're gonna be at in those two numbers today. You know, that's today's numbers.
Sure.
I can't, nobody's crystal ball is clear. But based on what we put in front of you folks, with the public's seen,
Yeah.
and reason, this is the numbers that you could be basing somewhat of a judgment off of.
And you said that with that mezzanine is figured into that $10 million?
Yeah, we had a good cost into there, yeah.
Okay, alright.
That's the wrestling you're referring to, right?
Yeah, it's a general, large space area.
Sure.
Okay.
And just also to know on the plan, that this basically pushes us out to the property line. So there is really no other space to go past this, without having some land acquisition, which I do think in the long range planning for the district is not a bad thing to have in your sites.
Cause you're talking about what, the apartments behind?
Sure, any land around the facility, I would think might be a discussion down the road to look at purchasing that for multiple reasons. It gives you expansion, gives you some better control about your environment. Safety is a big issue.
Right.
All these things come into play. I just want to bring that forward, 'cause I think it's a really important thought process as your master plan really looks out. And you may become opportunities, you know, as a building sell, maybe you
Yeah, they do.
wanna purchase it, just like we did the homes and
We
the
did the
playground.
homes,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
just wondering, how much were those homes that you guys bought?
A
Back
total for, there was 5 of them at one time.
Yeah.
from the middle school,
Two
yeah.
was like 500,000 somewhere,
Yeah, probably.
around there's ringing a bell.
For all
Yeah,
Does
I think we
that sound
demoed,
right?
we'd cost a demo and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that too, so,
You knocked them down or you moved them?
oh, they went down.
They went
They
down
knocked
in
them.
this case because we couldn't get them across the bridge,
Right.
Sure, gotcha.
We also ran into some asbestos issues
Which
and
we've
lead
done in the
issues,
past.
so
Or
then-
have moved
We've
buildings?
we moved the Habitat buildings across the bridge,
Oh, no kidding.
but in this case, those buildings were not conducive to being able to move across the bridge, and it was too much to try to get them to go around up KK or down to wherever.
Oh, to where they could have been.
Yes,
Gotcha.
Right, that was pretty.
that was very much true, yeah.
And we bought 2 houses probably how many years, and then it took us how many years to buy the other houses?
Well, we bought the one,
Yeah.
and then we bought the other 2. Was there only 2 more?
No, there were 4.
There was
Total,
4,
four total?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we bought them in separate, I don't know, Steve, you remember?
Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't buy.
Negotiations with those, right?
Yeah, because 2 or 3 people didn't wanna sell.
Right, we actually maintained that for a while because we had to do it, we owned it, like, well, we gotta do the work to it, we just couldn't do the neighbors. But the nice thing about that piece, remember, is that let us annex into the alley, which
Alleys,
gained
yeah.
us a lot of
Lot of
space.
space, yeah.
I mean, it's huge when you start looking at our format, so.
But so they only got 100 grand per house?
Less
Like
than,
one
Some-
yeah.
thirty at the most.
Yeah, somewhere around
So
there.
they're kind of dumpy houses,
Oh.
whereas some of the houses back there are on the, I mean, there's dumpy ones too, but there's a couple.
Kevin,
Right.
he was trying to correct you.
I was just gonna make the comment that, sorry, Megan.
No, I'm glad you told her, I didn't either.
But, my biggest concern about this plan man, stop it, was actually that,
Right in your purse.
if I'm going to want to oppose the referendum in the community, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Sure, right,
I'm going to view this as a sports proposal.
Right.
And maybe that's what's gonna pass a referendum, but it seems to me that that's an incomplete assessment of what we're really trying to accomplish. I love the idea of the auto lab, I love the idea of getting that part of the building put out closer to where our construction project happens, meaning the home
Right,
construction
yes.
program that we do.
Great.
I of course love the idea of enhancing the fine arts area, I love that. But I'm just concerned that it's emphasizing sports and parking lots. I that's
We need
simplification, but
to-
that's how I feel.
Yep,
Can I
and-
make a comment?
It's her, she's the chairperson.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
well, and yes, that's why it was broken out into two
Yeah, no. with the mezzanine,
components,
yeah.
because we felt the same way too, asking
all in
you to
the
be split.
marketing and
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
is.
yep, Donna?
Okay, so I was confronted by someone this weekend, and the comment was, what? So now everything's going sports? So my thing is, when we do a referendum, nobody is opposed to any of the tech ed enhancements, additions, even the kitchen. They're not opposed to doing those kinds of things. Instead of really saying, whoa, we're gonna do this and this and that, yeah, we gotta put it on, but emphasize the educational pieces, emphasize the other things,
And safety.
and safety.
Yeah,
is
I think the
most
only way to
important
sell
thing.
it to me would be if we could get that grant for like a community facility in
Right,
emergency.
right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I agree, I
But
don't
I
know how
mean,
we can sell it.
But I don't think, most people in the community right now, if it's the tech ed, all of those kinds of things, people are realizing that our students, that's another avenue of education for some of the kids that aren't book
Absolutely,
learners.
yep.
Well,
And,
it
Yeah,
is.
exactly,
yes,
and there's
definitely.
also the possibility of being able to move, because the old cafeteria, the new cafeteria, of course, would be all
Right.
new,
Yeah.
but then the old cafeteria could become a spot for the new fitness room.
right,
So,
Community.
which can be used by the
Yeah,
community.
Community,
which
yeah.
I also heard over the weekend, that people are not real happy with the way our fitness facility where it is, and some of the operational equipment in it,
Right,
that some of it's outdated, some of it is, just
It is.
not,
Yeah.
it's not
That PEP grant
the
is,
stuff
it's
that,
used at 60.
yeah,
like,
and
yeah.
some things are broken, and so they're just sitting there and they're not being
Right, right.
utilized.
This plan then may help that.
Right.
So
Yes.
it's all in the way
Well-
we communicate and market.
That's
I
right,
agree,
we're
but
marketing.
the thing then though too that this concerns me, and I'm sorry if I offended anyone by saying dumpy, I was referring to, the housing prices aren't, today to buy all those houses out, right now, with the market where we are, you're never gonna get a property for
Right.
130,000, never. 200, 270 for what used to maybe be.
Right.
So also keep that in mind. So the space is an issue. I would love to see how much money can we get, put something out here and start, just because at one point there is no land left. There's no land left. We can't possibly buy all, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 apartment buildings. Regardless of, that's a lot, just to buy those out, think of the
Cost is extremely low.
unbelievable. We have land here, and I know it has, nothing to do with,
Right.
but to keep a portion of, we do have nice facilities mixed in with bad facilities, but to use what we have nice and then move a separate portion out here. To me, the biggest thing, safety, I think rather than looking at the gym, and though we do need,
Yeah.
We need lots of
Clandra and I
showers,
have,
yeah.
4th grade boys, guess what? 4th grade boys get you get the gym the
Yep.
very, very last. So they're on Wednesday nights
Yeah.
and Sunday, right? Not fair, and we used to keep Wednesdays for CCD,
Right.
and now you can't, right? So we do need gym. But my other thing is with safety, bringing all these things into the school, we already have that issue where in a safe way that would keep people out of our hallways or just walking, meandering through, could we solve that? Absolutely. With a referendum, and especially if we team up with FEMA and we get a Mullins or a Kafka or a Matthew to help, and to me, that's what's gonna sway people, is you get the Kreskes, and I always feel bad for continuously Kresge. We've got the Mullins, we've got Matthews, we've got Kafka, we've got a lot of other businesses that, why not partner with one of them, right? Make it a Mullins Kafka Community Center, that has all the things we need, has tech ed parts, has that, but is separate from where kids are, learning and can be done in a safer way.
Well, if you look where the fitness would be now, it's up towards where the front of the building is currently. I mean, I'm sure with Steve, you could probably come up with a way where they're not gonna be able to get into, same thing with people getting into the pool. You could set up access, because again, people have asked for that before. We've had it, where now they can't use it, and it's an area where it's a lot less safe them trying to get to than where it would be proposed to move to.
See, and I would say if you're gonna do anything, I mean, the pool has to stay the pool, right?
Right.
We cannot afford to put another indoor pool
Right.
in. Even an outdoor pool is what, $5-10 million, like that. We could never afford to do that. But there's ways to make that area safer, and either put it right there next to it, or just something totally separate where you can get in, but like, I don't feel comfortable with people just being able to walk in to the school. We need to have something there that kind of barricades, because God forbid, right?
Well, we have people getting in right now before 8 o'clock.
I know,
So,
Be
why
know.
that's,
to that.
what am I saying?
right. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Steve.
I mean, I know exactly where you're going. And there, when you look at the site, the spaces are the spaces and the drainage is the drainage, and you gotta know where that all's gonna work. But honestly, if you were to market to your vendors that you just spoke to, and they really wanted to jump onto the bandwagon, another area that is really very approachable would actually be to the front of the building where the high school cafeteria is now, looking up the glass windows to the front of the parking lot. That space is gonna, if this goes through, you're not gonna have kids out there at lunch anymore. That's a dead area. You could easily take that space, connect onto the back of the auditorium, because the auditorium is always short of space,
Yeah.
storage. You can encompass that and fill that gap in. You can make it your community center. It's there, but it's a big ask for what you want.
Right.
Understand that. That's not cheap, and you'd have to really make sure you market that properly, because that's a lot of money to be put into an area that would be for community of that use, in my opinion. But that's,
I think it, I
but
hear
their
you.
spaces are kind of there.
Yeah, and I think it all the time. I think, that's really a shame that in a community our size, that someone once said to me, I only come to the school to volunteer because otherwise I would never leave my house. Do I love that she comes and volunteers? That's great. But how sad, right? That our city has nothing else to offer for people to get together, widowed or not, to come together, do a workout class, other than the pool, what do they
So here's a
have?
thought, have we ever entertained the idea, and I'm gonna kind of look at Rob when I say this, but also Steve, if speaking with, I love it, Peter, never mind, yes, thank you, Father Becker, and saying, what about the St. Paul space? What if we, the district, supplies the equipment, but we utilize, it's so sad that building
Well,
sits so
Ronnie,
vacant.
my daughter practiced there today, but it's not the priest, it's the
I know,
diocese.
I know,
And
but
so
the
they
priest
had
is
to
not
make,
talking, he's a great guy,
Oh,
and I
he's
think
great.
who could really help communicate that message. But have we asked those questions of Father Becker?
Well, all I can tell you is that-
Coincidentally, and I'm not sure if Steve's
that's why I
aware
looked
of
at
this,
you.
Michelle is. Yes, I've been having ongoing conversations with Father Becker on a variety of topics, and I'm meeting with Father Becker, Michelle, Jolynn this Thursday to initiate a conversation in regards to St. Paul's space. Is that a space that we could utilize, and I'll just use it as an example, we're not locked in, but is that a space we could utilize to help us with wraparound services? And so it's coupled with another conversation, I'm not sure if it's this week or early next week, well, it'd have to be this week as we're off to Milwaukee, but with the CEO from the Wausau YMCA to look at, okay, are there some partnerships available? So just to keep the board in the loop on, those are some conversations, some relationship building things that are going on right now with administration, with community partners.
There is one team that uses it, my daughter's basketball team, but it's also George Canather is the coach, and it's the George Canather gym. But I believe that they were pushed very hard. They had to, I think, jump through way more hoops than you would think if a gym bearing your name that you would ever have to do, and it was involving, I think, 501c3 and the whole thing.
It's
So
good to know, thank you.
it was, I think they had to work very hard for that one team to get in
I
there.
think it's the way in which it's marketed though, because again, if it helps to build the Catholic community, the Catholic funding pool, all those types of things, it's the way the conversation goes. And Father
it's just
Becker is
sitting there,
very
yeah.
well versed and just a good, genuine
Really.
person.
He comes to our athletic events,
So
it's
I
great.
think he could be very beneficial in that discussion with the diocese.
I agree.
Thank you, and as a side note,
Yes.
we have talked about that Wednesday no practice rule with Father Becker in the past, just a heads up.
Oh, Michelle, do you wanna go over what you gave us?
Yeah, what I put together was information on an operational referendum with our declining student counts, and our membership. We are looking at declining revenues. Just go through this quickly. Membership is the term used to describe the resident student FTE. So we look at resident students enrolled in Mosinee and then resident students open enrolled to other districts. And those are where our membership counts come from, not our open enrolled students. That's a separate thing. Membership has declined by 70 FTE since the 2018-19 school year, and is projected to drop by a minimum of 28 FTE in 24-25.
How do you come up with that projection?
Looking at our 12th grade classes graduating out, and then our 4K being probably 20 FTE, or 20 students, I should say, not FTE, lower than previous years. If that continues, I'm kind of projecting that trend would continue.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we have not surveyed the families of the district yet as to why that enrollment is declining, correct?
That's correct.
That's
planned
correct,
to go out
however,
this
we
week.
are in the process of developing a survey in regards to these questions, 4K, early childhood, why folks moving
When are
out.
we planning to send that out? Because
By
for- the
Valentine's
enrollment is
Day or
February.
sooner would be most beneficial, because right now, Jolynn, to her credit, she's working on an in-person open house, and so we'd like to have some of these details available for parents. So as of Friday, Jolynn was meeting with 4K teachers to give them a heads up that the survey is being developed, and to garner support and partnership. We're all in this together to get their opinion on some of the questions that might be on that survey.
So Rob, with that, I'm sorry, Donna, with that, kind of just piggybacking off what the question was, what's the deadline in which we need to get answers back or possibly make changes to the way we currently run our 4K?
Well, there's a couple of key dates, one
Okay.
being with looking at staffing, not to say there'd be any change for staffing, but if
Right.
there were to be changes with staffing, we certainly would want to have folks know sooner than later, but there's deadlines in terms of letting staff know of ideas and thoughts. And then also looking at just our partnerships, just looking at having parents sign up. We're getting into that time frame now where parents can open enroll, so we want to get information out there sooner than later, here by mid-February, so parents can make informed decisions as well.
Okay.
Okay, and so is wraparound daycare one of the issues that you're going to put on your survey, that if, that would help increase the enrollment if we had wraparound daycare? I don't know how you'd word that, but is wraparound daycare an issue for your family?
Or make
or
an
the lack
option,
of, yeah.
all day half day, cause
Right.
maybe some people
Yeah.
wanna do half, but for the kids, if we can't offer
Full day.
wraparound,
Right.
could we offer,
Have,
so two teachers take
right.
two different classes a day, and one or two teachers take a
Right.
full day, right?
Right,
So I don't,
which happens
right,
in
so I
some
don't have like the
districts.
exact wording, but I know that's exactly the intent of the survey, is to figure out, to garner what folks are looking for ideally in a program. So, number one, for the survey, it will be looking at what do folks like about our program now, and to garner input on what we can do to improve our current program. And the second purpose of the survey will be to look at how can we increase enrollment, so to get ideas, to get thoughts on what parents would look for in terms of having us develop I guess, not a new program per se, but at least to look at what a program might look
Enhance it.
like. Right, and Michelle, you were in those meetings, am I missing anything, am I
No,
hitting
that's
the major
correct.
talking points, yeah?
Another thing
Uh,
too is that there seems to be fewer students in the community, 4K students, because
That's
this
a
year
good
we
point.
have approximately 17 open enrolled out and 89 in the program in Mosinee. Last year, we had about 110 enrolled in the program and about 20 open enrolled out. So there's fewer, students there in 4K.
Are we, this is just a kind of a big picture question, is this district, and I don't know if you can answer this, maybe Rob,
Sure.
is our district seeing students come in of all ages though, that are perhaps non-US citizens and that may require additional services where we have to hire more staff? Is that happening yet?
I'm looking at our notes from our meeting, so in terms of, this is 4K you're referencing?
No,
Overall.
overall,
Yeah.
overall.
Mr. Way,
It's just a membership question.
Mr. Way, you might
Yeah.
remember the curriculum meeting about a year ago, in which we did have that conversation, that they're particularly in the areas of foreign language.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
thank you for the prompt, yes, so,
I don't
looking
think it
at-
was a huge number, but
Yeah.
like 7 or 8.
Yes, it was 7 to 10-ish, give or take, yes.
Okay, so I just don't know if it has been fluctuating,
But of
increasing.
all different languages, so not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
3
right.
Spanish and 4
Right.
whatever, right?
Yep.
7 to 10 independent or unique foreign languages being spoken in the homes, in each of those homes. And then it requires those services, and so I know we've contracted with CISA
Yeah.
and the university even, I think, at one
Yeah,
point.
I thought so,
Yes,
yeah.
RVA, I recently had a follow-up conversation in regards to, again, the needs at different districts like Mosinee,
Sure.
there's pockets of ELL population. Are there ways that we can work together? So, I'll be having follow-up conversations with RVA to see if that's a potential partner solution, if you will, looking at meeting the needs of ELL students too.
So as far as student membership, the way it affects our revenue, one of the ways is the revenue limit. That is the maximum the district can raise between state aid and property taxes. So as our student membership decreases, our revenue limit decreases. So we may still get the same amount of state aid, but we're able to levy less. So what we've seen over the past several years is the loss of 70 FTE. Our current revenue limit is $11,000 per member. So that's, for those 70, that's $770,000 of revenue limit authority each year that we're unable, that we no longer can levy. We get, as our membership starts declining, until it's level, we get a declining enrollment exemption for part of that to allow us to stay at the level we were the year before. And then the next year, we're down and we could stay what that would have been the year before without that declining enrollment exemption. And eventually, you no longer see declining enrollment exemptions.
Right, we're
So-
running out of that trump card, if you will. I mean, we're running out of those exemption opportunities. Thus, that the conversation of a potential operational referendum, I believe is coming front and center, and for us to have really thoughtful conversations on setting the stage for how we want that to potentially
Yeah,
look.
to me, we have one decision to make
Yeah.
between two options.
Mhm.
And I look
Correct.
at this, I think this is a bigger
Well, needs, definitely.
stone around our neck.
A question, the school perception, that's the ones we used before. Okay.
Yes.
Just ask.
Okay, so, correct me if I'm wrong, so the overall intent is to develop which, if we're gonna go operational, or capital for the November election.
Right.
Okay, so then to me, I would think the first step is to have the results of what that survey is for the 4K coming in. What are we missing as a district? Since we have this declining enrollment and it's continuously declining, what can we do to help counteract that? So, I think once we get that question, but this is just my opinion, once we get a little bit of an answer to that, then that will help guide which one we're going to go to. Now, even if we get an increase, of enrollment, of membership, it might not even be enough.
No.
And it's gonna
No,
just have to be operational,
not,
period of a
no.
sentence.
Right.
Right now, what I'm looking at, no.
The question is then is, with your expertise, Steve,
That's not a question.
what do we do in the meantime? Do we do partial, do we do none?
I mean, this, I don't know who put this together, but in essence said, you won't pass both.
Yes, we won't pass both.
Well, I do know the last ask on the ballot was 85% of districts went out for operational referendums. So that was the number that was told to us today.
Yeah.
So it's something to think about. I think everybody in the public education is gonna fall into that bucket sometime, you know? I think it's a delicate balance because we also, when we put the plan together that you have in front of you, you know, I really try to do our due diligence on the fact of areas that are really at a point of expiration. You know, you will never get away from age in your facilities. Your kitchen is 1960. You know, we don't function in the same manner that was built, and everything wears out. We know this to be true. So to try to not have a ton of money into that and just reclaim it for more profitable areas is a nice way of doing that. We did it at the middle school. So, you know, you're only buying pieces, and that relates to your bid numbers, of course. One thing, do you want me to go on with this, Rob?
Sure.
I can hand a document out to you that I worked on the last few weeks, and I'd just like to walk you through it. There's no intent to this, it's informational, and just things that rattle around in my head, since you're asking. And it may answer some of your questions, at least to give you some guidance. Because I think all the questions on the table are very, very important. You know, we're gonna have to create sustainability and how we move forward. We also, to Kevin's point, when he made the comment last board meeting, you can't think in 5 years, you're thinking 20 years, 25, 30 years. And the children that we are losing, Jessica, right? I don't know that number that's actually leaving the high school apparatuses because we don't offer certain things, right? Which other districts do a better job of. So I'm just gonna run this through with you, and it's really food for thought. Take it with you.
As Steve is passing that out, there's two things that I think we can potentially think about too in the back of our mind. As far as we know, Michelle or somebody from her office has filed the intent to file for the FEMA grant. So number one, since we did the intent to file, is somebody from your office going to apply for that grant?
Yes.
Which could then perhaps help with the capital portion. Number one question.
It's currently a project scoping grant. We did not have the information that we needed to be able to file for the capital piece. And they said they've seen success in people who have filed for this project scoping grant the following year to get the capital, to apply for the BRIC grant with the capital piece and get that.
Okay, so then what I'm hearing you say is that our focus should be on the operational right now, and then secondary, then the capital.
Yes.
And then additionally, my second thought was, is since we know that we have a decent number of high school seniors, some juniors, graduating early and leaving, which is also losing our membership or bringing in the revenue, are we giving any thought, and just planting the seed to what can we do, to Steve's point, to get them to stay here to continue to do dual credit where they're not paying for it and they're still considered a member to us, and we're bringing in that revenue, yet we're not losing them to actual, them going to a UW or a technical college, but just food for thought down the road.
Yes, and I will continue to work with the high school administration team to look at graduation requirements. That's a piece of this puzzle as well, where we have, on the lower end of graduation requirements. Therefore, if we upped our graduation requirements, we would, in essence, have more of our traditional juniors and seniors staying here to complete their high school degree,
But it would-
diploma, and
It would
then move
benefit
out.
us and them
Yes.
both.
So
Yes.
is there a big, at the high school, I'm kinda out of the loop, a big emphasis on if you stay, these are some of the dual credits you can get toward your future education. Is there a real emphasis being told to the kids during their homerooms or whatever, that if you stay, you can take these tech ed classes, or you
Better
can
yet,
take
to the
these other
parents, right?
alternative
Tell the
classes
parents.
to, enhance your college, lessen your college cost or whatever you're going into. Is that being emphasized?
I think that's a good suggestion. I think part of the conversation also needs to be with the school counselors, both at the middle school and the high school, to look at the career clusters. What classes should you be signing up for as a freshman? And we need to continue to do a better job mapping out those ACP, academic career plans, that indicate, okay, you need to stay here your senior year, and here's why. For your dream is to go into this program, and well, we have here, opportunities for dual enrollment, or building a house, or looking at some of the CTE programs.
But I even think at the sixth grade level, when the kids are now going into their electives, at the sixth grade level with their counselors, hey, students, this, if you, achieve this or that, by the time you're in high school, you can start taking these classes or going in this direction or that direction. And it's, money that you will never get back once, if you go to college without them.
I agree, the
We had that
conversation started in
survey
middle
done,
school.
and
I
don't we
More at the
have-
middle
I
school,
really
yes.
think at sixth grade, this should be talked
There
about.
was,
and-
Donna, that we did a survey,
Yes.
and we have one of the most of the school in our district taking the AP courses.
Right.
And the
We-
dual
we
credit,
do.
yes.
The dual credit.
Correct.
In the county.
Yes, in the county,
Yes.
so it's gotta be
Right.
promoted for us to be getting that large group. I mean, there's never not enough promotion, but you understand what I'm
The
saying.
early graduation
It
piece.
wouldn't hurt at all,
Yeah.
yeah, to
But
bring it
to
up.
stay, and
And to stay, and right, like
Yeah.
you said.
We do
yeah.
have-
there's a value to the district, and there's a value to the student and to
Yes.
the family to reduce those costs.
Oh, I think
And,
it's- yeah.
like, Mr. Thorpe had kindly pointed out, the fact, and the students even said, we need to bring back the freshman orientation, which is
Yes.
when
Right.
the parents and
Yes.
the students come
Mhm.
together, and you have all of these conversations, so the seed is planted, but it needs to be done every year with the parents, because the parents, these are teenagers, and you can tell them things, but it goes in one ear and out the other, and many
Trumpet
times they
blast it
don't
to the
understand. So
parents.
the parents need to be that focus point.
Right, and I know Steve's gonna talk about this, but just to set the stage, in addition to prioritizing operational capital, we do need, as admin and board, to prioritize what we really, what are, they're all needs, don't get me wrong, but looking at what Steve's gonna talk through, and look at some of the things that, man, we just gotta get rolling on some of these things capital-wise too. Steve, is that a good?
Sure, no,
Yeah,
go
can
ahead.
I just
You bet,
wanna
you
say
bet.
one
Sure.
thing
Sorry,
as far
Diane.
as our resident students.
Yeah.
If we look at just the resident count of our students enrolled at the high school, and then RVA students and students enrolled outside of the high school, it's 175 students this year. our 4K students, those same, categories, is 100. So that's 75 fewer 4K residents than seniors.
Yes,
So
Okay.
we keep graduating those bigger classes
right.
and we're
I
small
So the
company.
student, they do come back, if the residents don't enroll in 4K, do they come for?
Well, that's the ones who are enrolled and are not enrolled. So that's 100 versus the 175
So
for
what
the
you're saying
seniors.
is there's less
Yeah.
kids.
Yes.
Less,
Kids.
the birth rate is,
Yep,
Birth rate for-
not like we had.
That's a
That
whole
is
bit of this.
absolutely true.
Maybe.
And it's not, it's not gonna change anytime in the near
No,
future.
I don't
No,
think so
population
either.
decline. Elon Musk said it's the number one thing that fears him, population decline, collapse.
They can't
Because
afford
it goes
childcare.
so far down for 50 years.
Well, and
That's why
that's
they're
where,
final.
if you had a 4K program of wraparound, it might even help our teachers, it might bring more people into the district.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, sometimes you have to look, what's gonna bring families into
Agreed.
the district,
Agreed.
not just,
That's an investment, is what it is.
See, but then that's where I feel like a facility, right? Like, I don't wanna look at the school next to us, or even within our same size, and see, oh wow, look at what they have. A dome, an indoor track, or whatever, and look at their facilities, look at their computer science wing, look at their tech ed wing, look at this, and then you come here and it's like, we're slipping away, we're not comparable. My question is, if we do an operational, not a capital, do we miss this, what David kept calling this opportunity where debt falls off and you can wrap new debt in? Will we lose that
a good
by
question.
going through operational? Because then, okay, so then I'm out, right? Because if that's a once in a lifetime chance that you have to get that money, because that's the only time you can get it.
Well, unless you're gonna borrow, I mean, so in all of our stuff, I've just been looking at minutes and budget reports. This goes back several months, but we can borrow between 10 and 20 million, which is a huge span actually. And a lot of that has to do with interest rates actually and length of time. Between 10 and 20 million dollars in aggregate to either maintain or minimally reduce the mill rate,
Mhm.
right?
It's true.
And so that's what we're talking about, if we're talking about operational, because you're not gonna get much bang in construction and to be able to fund 4 or 5 years of operational expenses, although the operational referendum is ongoing every year, right?
However you
So
choose to
it-
set it up.
Yes.
Very good, yes, that's right.
And we'd wanna limit it, in my opinion, to 4 or 5 years, not just indefinitely, or not 20 years, or. But we have to talk that through, yes.
I'd like to hear more about the why behind that, because
Okay.
it's not like suddenly, I don't mean right now,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's not like we're gonna
With
suddenly
money.
see, yeah, right?
Right.
But I completely agree that, I'm sorry, I was responding to whatever was being said.
No, go right ahead.
Okay, so I completely agree that the survey needs to come first, right?
Yep.
As part of the survey process, it seems to me that we need to very strongly promote the importance, the facts of the fiscal responsibility of this board for a long, long time, right? I only glanced at this document, I wasn't on the board when this was done, because I wasn't here. And I only looked at 2 or 3 pages so far. But to me, and partly to Megan's points, much like all of us who try to get the most out of an old car before we replace our vehicles, we're eventually getting nickeled and dimed to death. And we have to pull the plug and replace our vehicle, right? Trade in our old car, even if we don't get anything for the trade-in. To that end, I would like to recommend that we spend the spring completing the survey and the summer informing the public that we have listened to them, right? Again, I wasn't here, I'm assuming there was a survey done before the referenda, although when I read this, if I got this letter, well, I don't know, but I'm reading this letter, the the third paragraph with these 2 check marks, and it says, "We've decided to survey you after we've lost the $44 million referendum." it seems like that was a little backward. But again, I don't exactly know what happened. And promoting the fact that we completed a 2021-2023 nearly $4 million construction project with no borrowing, right? We made judicious use of the federal COVID funds. We, as a board, decided to use part of our fund balance, that at the time was earning nothing anyway, in order to be able to do that with no borrowing. I'm not in agreement, by the way, with anyone on the board who thinks that we should only do operational referendum. Just because it says, and Michelle, I understand this is true, that school perceptions has not seen districts succeed in passing both. There have been districts that passed both. For sure there have been, okay? And I think we need to survey on both. But I think we need to be talking about new construction in line with this proposal from last spring, as well as those things that have been deferred. Major improvements, renovations, maintenance. Much like some people live for 20 years in the country with a dirt stone driveway. Eventually, some choose to pave their driveway, okay?
Took me 15 years.
Yeah, me too, about replacing an old roof, a furnace, or even worn appliances. If we walked the average citizen through our locker rooms, they would be appalled.
Thank you.
And yet it's like a $2 million project alone just for that, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the exact amount is isn't relevant. It's that we have been kicking the can down the road, not only because of failed referendum, but because we've all decided that this community, which includes all of us, want to make the last use of the final buck, okay? And if we're talking 25, 30 years into the future, I won't even be alive then, but I want to see the community benefit from something, whether it's community center enhancement, a wrestling mezzanine, additional classrooms. This is what a community is supposed to do. And it's incumbent on us as the elected leaders to make the case to the voters. We might not win on election day, but it's incumbent on us to do our absolute best. And so 10 to $20 million that's not going to get anything done. And this from 2016, 44 million, I didn't read this whole thing. I don't know what you guys all were trying to do during that, but I'm not saying it should be 65 million, but that's what 44 million would have been back then, is 65 million today. And that doesn't even include operations. So this is the level of the conversation that I feel we need to be having. And we're all, we're afraid of what the public is gonna say on the weekends and at night at the fish fry or whatever. And we should be, because they are the pulse of our community, right?
Yep.
Just because we were elected doesn't make us, quote, the experts, but it has led us in the door to get additional knowledge and information that the average citizen doesn't have. It doesn't make us smarter, it just makes us more informed. And it's incumbent on us to bring that information to the community. So I'm off my horse now, I'm done.
No, it goes right back to the very beginning message of it's the way it's all communicated.
Yes.
Absolutely. But I think we can communicate it in such a way that we
Absolutely.
could get both referenda
Can we
passed.
record you? Take the speech you just gave and.
Stop it.
I know.
The problem is that many don't watch.
Well, it doesn't, there's
You have to
no
put them in talking
negative,
points in layman's terms.
no negative to doing both.
No.
So Kelly,
Right.
we need to get out to the town halls in Emmett, Knowlton, Gunther, Green Valley, Mosinee, Reed, and the rest, right?
I have no problem with that.
No, I agree, I don't either, right? I'll get up and but you maybe don't want me up there in front,
Nobody
okay?
goes to those meetings either.
Look, we'll have to work
But-
hard, but
but-
we could
Kramer
do
does.
it, and
Yes.
it's a
And there's
25-year
people out
thing.
in
It is,
Boulder that go,
We can do it. We can do
our
it.
facilities are falling
We
far
can do it.
behind, and if this is a once in a lifetime chance where we're gonna be able to roll it in and pay that off and come back, we have to do it. We have to do it with all of our heart.
But you're not going to be able, here's the thing that referenda, and you and I have been part of this for a long, long time. Even recently, a year or two ago, when other districts around here went to the voting public, they said, we're gonna be able to pass this, if you vote yes on this referendum, it will have no tax impact. That is absurd. Anyone with a brain knows there's a cost to spending $60 million. We all know what they're really saying, but they're not clear about it. I think that the average citizen appreciates honesty and clarity. You say that, you know what, we're talking about it's not gonna raise your mill rate above this amount, right?
Yeah.
If we're only gonna do $10 to $20 million, we can do it without raising the mill rate. That doesn't mean there's not a cost, right? But that's how it's said that's how public education spins that. But also, not just education, but mostly, right? Because that's where the voters get to have a say. And I think that's why those the referenda that fails, it's because the public isn't being respected. It's all spin. And so we have to have we're not gonna be able to do this. We're not gonna be able to do what we should be doing by maintaining the mill rate at what it is right now. The mill rate is down 45% in the last 3 years, for crying out loud. And I understand, I respect the fact that the price of housing
Yeah,
has
that's
gone up
the pro-
30%,
yeah,
yes.
right?
Right,
But
about
it's still
30%.
lower.
Everybody still thinks that, it's,
Of course.
yeah, it's because of us.
And there is also another opportunity for an election in April of 2025. And then April 2026 too, prior to that debt being paid off, if that was your concern.
So great question. I always thought that it was better to have it in the spring. But when I saw that data a couple months ago, I've been looking for that report that guy came and gave. I am convinced that it has to be in November.
It makes sense.
I agree.
It makes sense.
Yeah, people are.
I couldn't believe the results.
That
Right.
said,
Including in politically conservative districts,
correct, right.
which was really what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
but
Shocking.
all of that said, and just speaking from my experience, but completely outside of this world, planning is the most important phase.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the adequate amount of time and communication and making sure the entire team is on the same page
Yes,
and that we
yes.
are well educated and can
Yes.
answer those questions, it is gonna be a difficult hurdle to get over.
Agreed.
No, maybe we should have an ad hoc community, ad hoc committee.
And you're gonna lead it, right, Mike?
Oh, see,
Okay,
you
I
have
would lead it.
there's like, I
Well,
see
you
like
should
4
have-
huge family reunions within this
Well, you
board. that
should
could-
have- Well, you
I don't
should
mean
have-
either.
And you
Well,
should have
me.
key stakeholders in your community. You should bring, if you want the community to do something, you ought to have an ad hoc committee with key members of our community because they're gonna
But
be
you
the
kind of
ones.
do, and what I mean by that is this is the year for strategic planning, and that is a
100.
piece of this conversation
Yep,
anyways.
is to get, there's key people in our town.
Oh, absolutely.
And they should be at the drawing board having, because it's gonna be them who get out and get it
is.
done,
It's
not
finding a
us.
yes committee,
It
absolutely.
is gonna be them who
Yeah,
gets
'cause
the
you're gonna have
voters,
no
not
committee.
us.
Yeah.
You're
And
gonna
as
have it.
Kevin said last month, that this board needs to be committed to a lot of time and energy and
100%.
planning, going back to the planning piece, if you really want to do this.
But it's a legacy, right? And it's for the future.
It's the right work.
It's a lot of
It's a
work.
lot of
It
work,
is.
but look,
Yes.
we
the
have
right
to do
work.
it. We have to do
My
it.
husband was on the board when
Yeah, we did that. I mean,
Yeah.
you remember those meetings?
Steve, you're chomping at the bit here.
This is all good conversation, I'm glad
Yes.
you're having it, honestly.
Yes, we
Um,
wanna see Steve's numbers.
Yeah, I guess, I'm glad the meeting's here because it's all about informative, right? What you have in front of you that I passed out truly is a nice tool. You're gonna pay for that tool to be used. How you question, what you ask that community, I think is gonna give you a very good barometer. And remember, they told you, 10% of the public comes in, they're 90+% effective on the answer that you're gonna get back. And whether it's an operational or capital, I think you got opportunity to ask both questions in that survey. I think you should use the tool, you're paying for it. Get the feel, right? It doesn't cost you anything more. But, I think no matter what we do, we have a very, 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 very fluid document in front of you, right? And we're gonna be working on that. And as I mentioned to Rob and Michelle, what you have in front of you is the 2016 survey that went out. And basically, I spent some time with that document, and This is just a mocked-up version, but I wanted to share some information with that, because it'll speak to some of the points I think that were brought up in the meeting. If you want to go to the second page, you have your respondent information. We know we're going to have demographics, where we're at, blah, 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 it's very important. And they'll collect all that data. On the third page, we had a Mosney difference, and that is kind of a nice tool, I think, in itself that was used to basically give you an idea of what the public feels where you're at. And it's a very good set of indicators, and I'm sure it plays into their compilation when they put things together. If you turn the page next, it's facility update and future planning, and these are just thoughts I want to bring to school perceptions to give them an idea based on this referendum that failed, and it failed twice. We know that to be true. So once after that happened, one of the points that Kevin made, we had $68 million, or however you want to look at the dollar range you put into your facilities, but a lot of those numbers that are there, we did some of that work after the referendum failed. We used Act 32, we put $13 million in infrastructure, we fixed a lot of things. I feel very comfortable where you folks sit today in your facilities, for your internal facilities that we touched. So I just want to call out some of those things that happened in Act 32. We also did Science Wing on top of that. I think it's important that the public understands we did that piece of the puzzle as well. And we repurposed areas that were demoed out and cleaned up and updated those as well. And then the number 3 would be the addition of the cafeteria plan at the middle school. And we did not go to the public for additional funding for that. But there's only so much money in the coffers, and we all know it. So thus we are at that point, right? So we chose not to borrow at that point to take money out, so we're gonna go from there. Flip the page again one more time, renovation and new construction. This is kind of a nice little telltale what we asked the community about, you know, when we looked at the second referendum that failed. You know, do we do a new, new middle, new high, you know, or existing middle school, different things of that question nature. But I think we answered some of the questions on the page we just read. We took care of a lot of the infrastructure pieces. We fixed the things that we could do. So that's just how they reworked it at that point in time. And then going back to my original piece, I said all I can speak to is the plan that's in front of you, because that's what I'm gonna work off of. And that's fluid as well. But what I sat down on the following page, you see the survey questions and estimated costing. I met with Steve Jarmos last week, and we went through lots of the square footage and things of that structure, what you have in front of you. If you were to cherry pick things, right, and cherry picking is very, you have to be careful when you say that, because some things have to happen whether I build 1 room or I build 30 rooms, right? There's certain initial costs that go into that. And I wanted to bring this in front of you just so I have an idea what the square footage is and roughly what the costing would come out to be if you were to look at some of these areas. Not saying these are the only areas, but they make sense to be lumped together because some of these things would be done in unison. And if you turn the page, this is what we have facility priority questions in the past. I just kind of issued those in. Maybe that's a way to take a look at it. And School Perceptions is taking a look at this as well. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe that's what you want to survey your community if you want to do these expansions. Where do you feel the improvement or the intent would be to look at this different sections of work? So that's as it is. If you flip the page one more time, we go to future funding support, and we just did some just simple what our tax impacts were for 2016 and where they fell for 2024. Michelle just finished those numbers this morning, so they're accurate from Baird. And it kind of gives you an idea. And I look at that, if I'm the person out at home getting that survey, I want to really know what that really is. I want to know exactly what that impact to me is.
But am I reading it right? It went down?
Correct. So if I told you 2016, 25 million, right, was $114. That same 25 million today is $38. But remember, this is debt falling off. So we gotta frame that properly, right, Michelle? That would have to be framed properly to understand the public knows that we are debt falling off. This is where the increase would be come to your, right, on your taxes. So it gives them a nice picture of that. And I only went to 40 because of the fact that we know the plan in front of you is that general number, right? And if I took the 40 million or 35 million, I put 30 million, 13 million, 4 million, 4 million on top of that, I'm at where you're at, Kevin, for what we would have put in there 7, 8 years ago, correct? So we did some of those things at a better number and better interest rates. I think that should be said too, because we borrowed money cheaply, correct? To fund that. So I think the board made very good financial decisions at the time they made them. They used the tools that were in front of them. I just want to I think it's important the district understands that. We positioned you in a very good light, but we have things that have to get done. Certain things wear out, and tech ed's becoming very popular. It's a scenario at best, but I just wanna put this together so you have some ideas of the dollars, why that looks the way it looks. And, you know, it's a talking piece. But I just wanna say, I think this is the best tool you're gonna get. I think you use it properly and ask the right question on all levels and get the information in. Then discern it and decide as a board, where do you wanna really go? Maybe it's only operational, I don't know. Maybe it's capital. It's a fair question to be asked, but all I'm saying is you're gonna spend a lot of energies post this, right? After the information comes back, there's a lot of energies that you're all gonna have to do, right? I'm included in that. I don't wanna waste my time, I don't wanna waste your time either. So I just think that's a pertinent way of looking at this project, where it goes with the public decide. They're gonna decide anyway, whatever you decide to do.
They are, and we might as well give them a choice.
Great job, Steve.
Kevin?
Yeah, this is
Michelle,
awesome.
yep.
So, I think for us, I like the idea of using the word priority. Because if everything is a priority, then nothing's a priority.
Right, yep, I agree.
That having been said, and I'm not the expert at writing surveys, I don't know exactly how to craft this, but if we're asking people to prioritize, right? Or what would they say? I think it creates more potential no voters, people who are gonna vote no. If at the board level, we then decide to include things that the survey might not have given us, because everybody has in their home, we all have a personal budget, right? We can't do everything, neither can a school district, but we have a better understanding of what we haven't done as a district in maintenance and replacement and repair and renovation. So I'm not sure I like the idea of that phrasing. So that would be something I would hope that school perceptions and the survey people could help us think with language.
We talked this morning about some of these, I just looked at my notes here, I mean, yes, their job will be to help us strategize.
Wordsmith it.
What the best wording is. And so that's really with the board here, if, for example, you want to kind of committee as a whole, work with either Rob or Darren or both, or and have them come in and we're wordsmithing and putting stuff together, or it could be where admin, we're continuing our meetings, and then of course, we will include the board. So it's really, however the board wants to proceed with the work of getting the work done, like getting the survey done, but of course, you will approve it. This is this is our survey, and it's important that priorities are identified, and the Joe Sixpack, Joe Public, you know, they might have a different perception, but again, we need to identify what those priority areas are, and then communicate with our stakeholders why it's so important that these are priority areas.
Diane and I were on the last referendum. And we struggled, well, Steve too, you know, we struggled because we put out a perception study to the community. They gave us feedback and we didn't take it.
100%.
Yes, and.
They said we would pass a referendum at this dollar amount,
And they
and they
went
told us,
double
don't
it,
go
yeah.
above that, do
Yeah.
not. Well, some of them, yeah,
So
so
the other
Sue
thing
went
is to
above it.
remember-
Oh, they went above it, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead, Kevin.
So, I think now is the time, even though elections are in April and we don't know
Right, makeup of the
Yeah, we
board.
don't have-
well, we mostly know the makeup of the board,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't know who's gonna be in which seats, right?
Right.
right.
But it seems to me that now is a good time for you to, I'm gonna ask, are you willing to share with the board what your thoughts are about this process being a committee of the whole, or are you looking for a referendum committee?
Well, I think this should be a committee as a whole.
Okay?
I really do, because I think the more that we have on this, the more feet on the ground, the more it gets out there. Because if you leave anybody out in any particular time, you're gonna lose that little bit of information. And especially with everything now on social media and, you know, Megan, Calandra, they're younger, they're more on those type of avenues. Get all that out there, get on the information out there. How else can we get, you know, are people reading the newspapers, Mosinee Times? Do we develop maybe a weekly item in the Mosinee Times that'll say, what are some questions and question and answers? What's your question? Let's put it out there. So I think with everybody and their different aspects of what they do in their day-to-day life, their families, it's just more communication, more ways to get it out there.
I don't know if School Perceptions does this, and with all due respect to anybody in your chair.
Sure.
Or in Christie's chair, or whoever, not Christie, but whoever is it Heather,
Yes,
Oh, yep.
publications person?
Yep.
I really feel that we ought to be thinking seriously when we're talking the dollars we're talking about in having a public relations company writing these pieces you're talking about.
Yes.
Not someone from the school.
Right.
It still gets penned over the superintendent or the school board president's name.
right.
I understand that, but somebody has to be an expert at how to communicate these messages that we
So
want out there on a weekly basis.
When we go to the convention next week, we can seek that out because
Yeah,
there are
good point.
courses.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
of course.
there are.
Yes.
Yep,
Number
yep.
one. Number two, because I do not have the best memory. But something, I'm feeling that somewhere, somebody has said to us within the last year that they look at the demographics of our school district, our voter population, to help us break down, do we have more people in this age range that may be more, you know, the elderly that are on a tighter budget, or there's more farmers? Did we have that, or am I
did.
imagining that?
We
You
did.
did, and the person that brought that to you was from School Perception, the gentleman that gave the data that you wanted.
What was the month that I've been looking for?
May.
That was in May.
May of this year. Thank
Yeah,
you.
he gave the data to you,
Okay.
yeah, that's where you received it from.
So
Looking
that I
for
think
it.
is so
It's huge.
instrumental, to
Yeah,
that we
of
need to
course.
know who is our, like, this will help us to target our questions, of course, and why they're in the business of school perceptions, as to what is our greatest voter base. And, I tend to believe it's the older population. I could be off on that,
It
but
usually is, but.
We have a higher average education level than many of the communities around
Yes.
here,
Yeah,
even out in the rural areas.
And also, do we want to consider having a community group of
When we get
people?
there.
yeah.
Okay,
Right.
good.
But again,
That's
I
what you
think
want.
you can incorporate that with the strategic planning, cause that needs to happen, which is involves
Yeah.
the community anyway.
You want a group of, that's how they got the elementary, they had a yes
Yeah.
campaign,
We did.
and you get a group of parents, a group of everybody from here to there, and grandparents, and you get them all in there, and you have them, yes, we want this done. That's how you do it.
One thing about in our conversation with School Perceptions was they said, instead of possibly asking the public each individual item, is this important, how important is this, prioritize, have like a base plan. These are the things
Yeah.
that the board and administration
Yep.
say
That's
have
what
to
you
be
want.
done.
Yes.
They use like the
Sir-
Christmas tree and ornaments and having a baseline and
Okay.
everything, and, right, yeah.
Yeah, and then have those other things, so, you know, as a board, what are those things, you know, with the information that Steve's, you know, and Rob has given you, would be the priority base,
Right.
you know,
Correct,
that,
cause that's what I'm getting to with the perception study. If you break it down, and they say, well, I didn't think that was a priority, so then they're, you know what I mean?
Right.
You want just to say, this is what we need you on board with it, so that they know we're listening without them saying, well, I didn't, you know, I don't want that. So you can't kinda do the,
No, I did that kind of an exercise in front of you folks for
Right.
one reason, because I didn't want anybody going on tangents
Okay.
about what the cost of things really are.
okay,
Because it's fluid and just understand where that looks. How, School Perception said the same thing, how they would craft that
Yep.
is important.
yes.
But I think no matter what we do, with this group, is, since the law changed, that you can only ask 2 questions a year. You're gonna have to funnel this down. In the past, with the other referendum, we could ask 20 questions, whatever it was.
Yes.
You
Okay.
cannot do
I
that, that's
didn't
2
know
a
that.
year.
Okay, 2 a
So if
year.
you ask something in April, you can only ask 1 question in November.
Okay,
So I just think that's where we have to decipher, you, and your board's going to decide where you wanna go with that, because if you don't want a gym on this plan, it can be removed in a second and not be shown.
Right.
But then you can't ask the question.
Question.
I don't know if that's how it will get broken
No,
out,
very
but
good.
I think we have to keep that in mind. You only get 2,
Yep,
and you have to decide what you're gonna do, because you don't get 3. You get
Right.
1 in April for next year again,
okay.
but that's how it would fall.
Okay.
And that's why Michelle brought that. April will be next thing to go for an operational piece.
Okay.
And there is the first convention I went to in 2021, Kettle Moraine did an amazing presentation about how and I'm gonna email WASB and ask them to send the PDF because it was awesome. But everyone going, there is a referendum workshop. It is 3 hours, but I'll be there. I think we all should try to find time in our, things to go to that and get,
It's
the
Wednesday,
information.
1 to 4. I
1:30
plan
to
on
4:30.
going.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, you sent me that one.
You'll be gone, but
I'll be
the rest
Stephanie,
of us.
she had a question.
Just if I might, offer, I don't even know if it's advice, but, in one other experience I've had with running the referendums, if you could pick 2, maybe a board this size, 3 real good spokespeople for your referendum. We don't all know everything about school finance and can speak fluently about it, or we don't all maybe have the same passion. We might have that passion, but who can
Can articulate it.
can articulate it and connect to the staff, or, I'm sorry,
To the
community.
And staff.
I was ready to
Yes.
run through a wall when Kevin was giving his speech.
Who can break it down? Yes, who can break it down into understandable terms? You might have to work with Kevin here a little bit. That was just one thing that was really helpful, because that was your go-to person for all the questions,
Okay.
Did you
even
give a
though
speech to the
they all
Packers
make those decisions as a board.
But see, and we even have with our own, Heather in the buildings, we can develop some really
I'm going with
good
you.
selling points on
Oh,
a
yeah.
card
Coach
that
Dick
everybody can have and pass out.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I
And
think so
the
too.
referendum process that I went through, that's what we did. We
Hand
had-
out a card?
We had
Yes.
talking points for all board members here.
Yes.
If a community member corners you at fish fry, here's the go-to.
And you don't wanna
And if you
give
don't know
out all
the
the
answer,
information.
say, hey, well, we'll get back to you, or what, that's
Right.
where you would.
Kevin.
QR code.
Yeah, yeah.
I shared with,
Phone
I told
number.
Rob, I think school perceptions needs to watch
Yes.
Put
this
Kevin's
meeting.
number on the card.
Yeah.
I really
Okay.
do. Because there's no way it can be articulated, some of the passion without watching it.
So the timeline for the survey is to go out this spring, so that would be late April, early May.
Latest.
And yes,
Yeah, it'll be
and
April.
right now, administration, we've set up our next meeting with the 2 gentlemen, Rob and Darren. It's the week after, when we get back from the
Thursday,
school board
the Thursday
convention.
to get back.
Friday.
Right, but let me know, or let us know if the group wants to have Darren or Rob here to help formulate those ideas of, what is the priority list, so that's something, they can join the whole group, or they can continue to work with administration, and then we share with the committee as a whole what's going on.
I think it'd be a good idea if they came to one.
Planning is the most important piece of the process.
Yes.
Yes.
Game plan.
Okay, anything else, people? Questions? And we don't have to make a decision on this.
There's no motion or anything.
Nope, no. Okay. Thank you, this is great. Thank you, Steve, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to
I
help.
just shared that, school perceptions.
Oh, you found it?
Presentation, it
It
was
wasn't from the May
February.
one. The May one was your
Yeah, it
presentation.
was February 21st.
Yeah, I
Oh, yeah,
just
you're
looked
right.
at it. February?
Yeah, 21st. I just
Thank
shared it
you.
with
You
with
did.
everyone.
Thank you.
February, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
she shared with us now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming
I
this
thought I
evening.
forwarded it to myself.
We have to adjourn?
Steve adjourned, I
Yep, we
couldn't
would make a
find it.
motion to
He
adjourn.
had to help me
Motion
find it a few
adjourned.
weeks ago.
So we have a motion by Kelly, is there